Chill Computer Guy. Today we're in VEQ Studio. We are going to talk about EQs, in particular the VEQ by Waves. I want to eventually kind of do a little bit of a review on all of the Waves plugins just because they have the best sales. And I'm a huge, I just use Waves plugins. I love Waves plugins. All I have here is VEQ Studio and a bunch of Waves plugins, and I'm good to go. I feel like I got everything I need. I got a few soft synths here and there, but yeah, the Waves plugins are great. What I did here is I just threw a bunch of random loops in here, a bunch of 150 BPM loops. Here's what we got. We just threw this together in like 2 seconds off throwing loops in the timeline. Here's what we got to test the EQs out. We wanted to kind of get something with full spectrum, some highs, some lows. Here's what we got right here. A little funky. So what we got up top, we have a little drum loop, 115 BPM. We got a bass loop, F, 115. We got a flute in G minor. We got a Rhodes in G. We got some vocals. It looks like an A. So we're all over the map. So not the greatest sounding loop. Like I said, I just basically typed in 115 under the BPM and just drug a bunch of loops in. Try to give it a little funky feel. Basically the reason I threw a bunch of different things in here is I wanted to try to express how important EQing is. As far as you start throwing your song together, and in this case it's a bunch of random loops. Like I would never throw a bunch of random loops together and call it good. This is just basically a shortcut because it's either this or open up an existing project which already has a bunch of plugins on it. But the thing with throwing a bunch of loops in is I basically put these EQs on the master bus and there's no other effects going on. And so this is just a stripped down EQ session. You know, I'm strictly going to focus on EQ. Nothing about compression, nothing about even the mix levels. The levels are all the exact same. I'm basically, the whole idea behind this video is to express how important EQing is. It goes without saying how important it is. But I notice myself when I'm putting together a song and as I get more and more tracks, I end up with like a kind of a little bit of a blur going on as far as what exactly am I trying to say here. There just seems to be a bunch of conflicting things. And you have to go on each individual track and you need to notch your stuff out to really get it to stand out from the rest of the mix. And like I say, it goes without saying how important EQing is, but I'm trying to express and also do a review at the same time of the VEQs by Waves. These EQs are really, really good. There's probably 3 or 4 EQs by Waves that I live by, and the VEQ is one of them. This EQ was included in the Gold Bundle years ago, and so I just kind of set it aside. I'm just like, I got these other shiny EQs came out, and so I just kind of put these on the back burner. And then one day I was just reaching for an EQ and I accidentally select one of these by mistake and I started messing with it and I'm like, oh my God, the clarity of this EQ. This EQ is kind of a hidden gem and I forgot how good it is. And when I put it side by side with like the SSL EQ and other EQs, I realized that the clarity of this EQ is just really, really good. It's unbelievable. It comes in stereo and mono, and it comes in 2 different versions. There's the EQ3 and the EQ4, and the only difference is you have an extra shelving or an extra filter here, basically. So starting with the EQ3 here, let's go ahead and zoom in on this thing. So first off, let's start with the EQ3. Now, these are really, really well laid out. And the thing that I actually really like about these EQs is the fact that it's selective frequency as opposed to just a loose knob that you can put between frequencies. These are all key frequencies. They're very, very key frequencies. Starting off here with a high pass filter. This is your low cut. You can cut at 45, 50, 70, 80, 160, 300, clear up to 360 hertz. And this is just a perfect, just an absolute perfect high pass filter. It has everything you need in it. I always find myself cutting around 50 or maybe 80 or 300 if I'm doing some high end work, but everything is easily selectable. So it's a one-click high-pass filter. So that, first off, let me just start with that. Now, the VEQ3 only has a high-pass filter. It does not have a low-pass filter, which I think is fine because I find myself using this VEQ3 constantly because it's a very quick and very clear and very necessary. It has basically everything you need for a one-stop shop for EQ. Now, if you want to do more complex things, there is the VEQ4, which we'll get to here in a few seconds. Now, the way this is laid out, of course, with the high-pass filter, there's only one knob, which selects the cutoff. Other than that, the way the EQ is laid out is very similar to, I believe this is a model off of the Neve type thing with the Neve setup, where you would have an outside potentiometer to select the frequency, and then the inside potentiometer would select minus or plus dB. You can go up to 18 dB plus or minus, but the outer potentiometer is, you cannot select in between, which again, I really do like. The fact that there are very specific frequencies to target here. I've become a huge fan of this as opposed to parametric, where you can just select any frequency under the sun. 106.8 hertz, that's where I need the bump at. You know, this is just selectable. And the frequencies are, you know, there's the low frequency here. So there's 35, 60, 100, 110, or 220. So the low frequency and then the high frequency, we're going to go ahead and skip ahead to the high frequency, which is just 10 and 12. 10 and 12K, and then you can boost or cut at either of those levels. So it's either off or 10 or 12K. And so that is reminiscent of the Neve setup there also. And then, of course, right in the middle, you have your frequency, which is looks like a bell curve here. Again, what I like about this EQ is you can pretty much find what you need very quickly for your track. We start off at 360 hertz, 700 hertz, 1.2K, 1.6K, 2.4, 3.2, 3.8, 4.8K, 7.0K, and 8.2 thousand hertz. What I like about this, what I tend to do with this EQ is max this thing out and then select and you can find where you need to go. You can find that frequency you're searching for and then pull it back and do whatever. Let's go ahead and show a demonstration. Now we're going to go with the EQ 3 here. We're going to go ahead and bounce this here. We're going to go ahead and start this back over at 0 here. Let's play this drum loop here. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, need I display more? This is a really great EQ. It's a one-stop shop. You can quickly focus the energy where you need to as far as your signal is concerned. You have, let's say, 12 tracks in your session. What you do is you just throw this on all 12 tracks and you quickly dial in where you want the tracks to sit in relationship to one another. And I have the clarity of this EQ and the ability to just dial it in super quick, just really can't be beat there. So right here, I put a high pass at 45. No frequencies are going below 45. That prevents a little rumble. I got a little plus 12 dB here at 60 hertz. I got a 3200 hertz. I have a little boost there, and then I have a little boost at 10K for some high end, and then your analog, which is your output. You click analog, it's going to give you that fuzziness. From what would be analog vintage type gear fuzziness. And just like that, you get tons more action out of these tracks. Let's go ahead and play it, and we'll go ahead and bypass this here. that's the VEQ3, and that's probably my favorite. Just run and gun, drop it on the track, focus the signal, one-stop shop. This EQ I love. This is on my favorites list because if I need to quickly focus the energy of whatever instrument it is in my track, I can quickly grab this, put a high pass on, zero in on my bell, crank it up, put a little low end, put a little high end, add a little analog, and maybe a little output gain at the end if I want to run this into a compressor. I actually like pumping up this output and then running this into a compressor. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the V compressor. I'm sorry, I'm just not a huge fan of that compressor. But these EQs are really, really, the clarity is really, really good. I've become a huge fan of these EQs. That's the VEQ3. Let's go ahead and put that one away, and we'll focus on the VEQ4. Now, if you need, this is basically this is an EQ you can put on every track as well, but this is going to give you a lot more options because it's going to give you 2 bells instead of the 1 bell. Now, you're still going to have the low frequency and the high frequency, but you're going to have 2 bells. You're going to have a low bell and a high bell there. Also, this has a low-pass filter as well, and a high-pass filter. Now, the way this works is the outer potentiometer is the high pass, the inner potentiometer is the low pass. But again, specific frequencies here. You can cut it at 27, 40, 47, 82, 150, 270. As far as your low pass, you have 3,900 hertz, 5,600 hertz, 8,200 hertz, 12K, or 18,000 hertz. That's where you can cut at, or you can just flip them both to off. But yeah, that's really handy to have if you're having phasing issues, and this also goes with the VEQ3. You have a phase button there, and also you can turn the EQ off and on, basically bypass it right there. Next to that, you have the low frequency. Now, this can be a shelf or a bell. Now, by default, it's going to be a shelf filter, okay? But you can, if you click this, it's going to be a bell. So you can shelf right here on the low end. You can shelf at 33, 56, 100, 180, or 330 hertz. And you can either shelf that or you can create a bell there. Now, as far as the Q of the bell, I don't know. You'd have to look up on the stats here. I'm pretty sure if you hit this question mark here, it'll show you exactly where we're at with that. Yeah, you can click that little bell here, and then there's all your stuff. It's going to tell you how many dB per octave. I believe it's 18 dB per octave. I'm not really sure, but it's all right there. That's what I love about Waves plugins. You hit this question mark, and you instantly have your manual there, your PDF there. I mean, you can print this off, photograph it, do whatever. But it's going to tell you how many dB per octave these bells are. But the important thing is you can either have a bell or a shelf. And that goes for the high frequency as well. You can see the high frequency. We're going to go ahead and skip past the 2 bells here. You can have a bell or you can have a shelf there. So if you want to put a 6,800 hertz shelf on your vocal or a 10K shelf on your vocal, you can do it there. And then you have, of course, your plus or minus 18 dB right there in the middle potentiometer. As far as the 2 bells, these are very, very useful in very specific frequencies. We got 220 hertz, 270 hertz, 330 hertz, 390 hertz, 470 hertz, 560 hertz, 680 hertz, 820 hertz. We got 1K and 1.2K at the end there. And then you have you can make it either, and again, these are set Qs. You can have a high Q, which is a very narrow surgical boost or attenuation, or more of a broad one. And again, you can find out the actual dB per octave right there on the question mark icon and look it up on the PDF. Like I say, I don't have all that information off the top of my head, but the thing is the less variations, the better, in my opinion. You can either have a sharp or you can either have a dull attenuation or boost. That's all you need to know. Next to that is the high shelf. Okay, this is we got a 1,500 hertz, 1,800 hertz, 2,200 hertz, 2,700 hertz, 3,300 hertz, 3,900 hertz, 4,700 hertz, 5,600 hertz, 6,800 hertz, or 8,200 hertz, or 8.2K, however you want to say it. And again, same exact as the low bell. We have either a sharp cut or boost, or we have a narrow cut and boost. That's all the information you need. Something I like about these EQs, well, not only are they modeled off the Neve type console, but the less options you have, the better, especially when it comes to EQing. With parametric EQs or EQs with just that interpolate between these values, you're going to end up with just too many variations. And so the ability to just go ahead and crank this up and find where you need to be is really nice. So let's go ahead and play this loop, and we're going to run this EQ through. We're going to start out with the filters. We're going to go across to the high and low, and then we're going to go to the bells after that. Let's go ahead and play this. Make sure the EQ4 is active. Again, some pretty obnoxious loops there. You know, that's a little ear piercing to hear that go around and around like that. But the main reason I pulled a bunch of different loops in real quick with a bunch of different frequency ranges is just to kind of give you an idea of how quickly you can find what you need as far as EQing goes with these VEQs by waves. Not only that, but the clarity and is really, really good. Check these out on the Waves website. Keep an eye out on the sales. Eventually, these will be on sale, I'm sure. They both come in one pack. Just watch the sales. Eventually, they'll be $29. Use a coupon code. You can get them for $26.10. They're well worth it. When you start to use these instead of the standard Bitwig EQ or the standard parametric digital EQ, you're going to notice the energy of your signal. You'll have a more, I don't want to say sincere, but a more analog and a more organic musical sound out of these EQs. And it's more to do with not just the analog button, but just the natural noise. When you do click the analog button, you're going to have natural noise. You can't really define it, but it's feel is what it is. And it's something that's organic, and it's something that's very musical. If you have a mix with all digital EQs and you throw the EQ3 or the EQ4 on each individual channel and you start to dial them in, I guarantee your mix will pick up a lot of musicality, a lot of good analog vintage kind of energy, and it will give your music more feel, to be honest with you. So yeah, check out EQing. EQing's not difficult. The problem with EQing nowadays is with all these digital EQs, they're all parametric, and there's just 1,000,001 options. I see these EQ curves, and it's like, is that a goddamn EKG or an EQ? It's hard to tell sometimes. But back in the day, these are modeled off the Neve consoles, is you had fixed amounts. Okay, your potentiometers clicked to fixed amounts. Okay, and those amounts could be minus 18 dB in this case to plus 18 dB, and it would interpolate fully between those two values. But as far as the frequencies, they were fixed, and they were fixed to very specific amounts because there's specific things that happen in those amounts. And being able to just click on those amounts, with your gain turned up, to be able to pinpoint where that's having the effect in your signal, and then boost it or bring it down, where there's certain things, if you use a very, very thin band, or in this case, if you boost the signal and then you switch between these bands, you can find the information you need to EQ your tracks properly, is what I'm getting at. So check out the VEQ3, the VEQ4. I'll leave a link in the description for the Waves website. I'm hoping that they'll go on sale again soon, because like I say, I got these as part of the gold bundle years ago, and they sat on the shelf and I never used them. And I pulled them out the other day. I just accidentally put one on a track, and I was like, this is really smooth. And these values are perfect as far as the frequencies. The selectable frequencies are really, really spot on. And it's a plus or minus 18 dB. I found that I could find the sweet spot real quick with these EQs, and I thought that the clarity was unbelievable, and they had that little underpinning of analog feel that I also like. So, I mean, great EQs. Check them out. Chill Computer Guy here. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We're going to have more reviews on this stuff. Like I say, these tutorials are not for beginners. They're not for experts. They're for everybody. This is by no means my how to EQ a track tutorial or anything, because that is all open to interpretation. But I can tell you, if you are confused by EQing, if you find EQing a chore, check out these EQs, because with fixed frequencies, you can just zero in on what you need to do with EQing much easier. So, yeah, definitely check these out. And keep in mind, as far as other plugins go, having fixed amounts on your frequency is less options, and it will make EQing a lot less, tedious. Some people like to interpolate to any possible amount. Oh, I need to boost at 127.8 hertz. That's where my boost has to be. That's fine. That's maybe the digital mind. Maybe that's JavaScript. But I'm still all about the nuts and bolts of the analog feel and the HTML, if you will. Just get down to basics, get down to less options. It will be much, much easier for you to find the path you need to go down as far as EQing is concerned. All right, Chill Computer Guy, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Give me a like, give me a comment, give me a thumb up. Tell a friend about the channel. Share these tutorials if you have anybody. And this goes beyond Bitwig Studio. This is for any music producer who is really just freaked out by EQing, and wants to get really, really down to like the basics of music production, the fundamentals, if you will, without specific theories or specific things, more about the broader picture of sound design and music production. That's what I want to do here with Chill Computer Guy. So check it out, subscribe, tell a friend about the channel, and if you haven't already, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, and we'll see you guys again. Bye-bye now.
Well, yeah.
Now, since you're a subscriber and since you keep returning, we're going to furnish you with the quick tip tonight. The quick tip tonight is if you want to solo one track without unsoloing the next, you hold down on shift. In other words, we hear just the drums. Now we hear the bass. But you hear all that shit in between? You don't need to hear that. Let's try this again. If you hold down the shift and hit the solo on the bass, it will cut the drums and solo the bass simultaneously. Check it out.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah.
You just got to hold down on the shift. Hold down on shift when you click solo. That's the quick tip of the night. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye now.